Have you ever seen a person's soul break? I did. I saw it in my own reflection in the silver cake knife. The knife wasn't for the cake anymore. It was in my mother-in-law's hand, pointed directly at my sister. The beautiful white tent, the fairy lights, the soft music. Everything just stopped. My perfect day had turned into a nightmare. My name is Jessica Garcia, and I'm 29 years old. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I was marrying Mark, a man who showed me what true love felt like. After years of feeling second best, of feeling invisible, I was finally the bride. I was finally the center of attention. I was supposed to be happy. Before I tell you how we got here, how my own sister tried to burn my world to the ground, please. If you have ever felt hurt by someone you love, please find it in your heart to subscribe. Knowing you're listening helps me find the strength to tell this story. Means so much to me. It all started during the toasts. My maid of honor, my sister, Amelia, took the microphone. She looked so beautiful in her blue dress, smiling that perfect smile she always had. Everyone thought she was an angel. She was my older sister, the one who was supposed to protect me. But her smile was a lie. I want to make a toast, Amelia began, her voice sweet like poison. To my little sister Jessica. She always gets what she wants. The crowd smiled, thinking it was a joke. But I knew. I saw the darkness in her eyes. I had seen it my whole life. My hands started to shake. She looked at my new husband, Mark. And to Mark, she said, her voice dripping with fake pity. He is such a good man. So good, that he is willing to raise another man's child. Gasps filled the tent. The music stopped. My heart shattered into a million pieces. My mom just sat there, her face pale. My dad looked down at his plate, ashamed. But Mark's mother, Eleanor, a quiet woman who loved gardening and baking cookies, did not move. She just stared at Amelia. She had been a widow for 10 years and rarely spoke above a whisper. Slowly, Eleanor stood up. She didn't scream or cry. Her face was calm, scarily calm. She walked past the crying guests, past my frozen parents, and went straight to the beautiful 3-tiered wedding cake. She ignored the flowers and the sweet frosting. Her eyes were fixed on the silver knife lying next to it. I see so many of you watching from all over the country and even the world. Please comment where you are watching from. I want to feel your strength. As you show me your support, I pray that your own family will forever be protected from this kind of pain and betrayal. Eleanor picked up the knife. She turned around, her gentle eyes now as hard as stone, and walked towards my sister. You will not ruin my son's happiness, she whispered, her voice dangerously low. And that's when she raised the knife. But what Amelia did next was the real reason everything exploded. It was a secret only Amelia and I knew. And it was far worse than the lie she just told. If you think you know how this ends, you're wrong. This story isn't just about a ruined wedding. It's about a lifetime of secrets. Please subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. You won't believe the truth. My sister Amelia didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. As my mother-in-law, Eleanor, stood there with that silver cake knife, a strange smile spread across Amelia's face. It was a cold, confident smile. It was the same smile she had when we were children, right before she was about to do something truly terrible. To understand why my sister smiled at a blade, you have to go back. Back to a little pink bedroom with 2 small beds. Amelia was the sun in our family, and I was just a shadow she cast. Everyone said she was perfect. Perfect grades, perfect hair, perfect smile. But I knew what she was like when no one was watching. I remember my 7th birthday. My grandma gave me a beautiful porcelain doll with glass eyes and real silk hair. Her name was Lila. She was the most precious thing I had ever owned. She was the only thing that was truly mine, not a hand-me-down from Amelia. I loved her so much. Amelia had dozens of dolls, but she wanted Lila. She told me I didn't deserve something so pretty. She said I was too plain to own a doll like that. I hid Lila in my closet, under a pile of blankets, hoping she would be safe. But with Amelia, nothing was ever safe. A week later, I found Lila in the trash can behind our house. Her beautiful face was cracked in half. One of her glass eyes was gone, and her silk hair was cut off with scissors. I knew who did it. I knew it was Amelia. My little heart broke into 1,000 tiny pieces. I ran inside, crying, holding the pieces of my doll. I screamed at Amelia, telling our parents what she did. But Amelia just cried her big, fake tears and told them I was clumsy. She said I dropped the doll and was trying to blame her because I was jealous of her. And my parents, they believed her. They always believed her. They told me to stop making up stories and to apologize to my sister for upsetting her. They sent me to my room without dinner. That night, I learned a very hard lesson. My truth didn't matter. My pain was invisible. What would you do if your own family made you feel like you didn't exist? If the person who was supposed to protect you was the one who hurt you the most? It's a feeling I wouldn't wish on anyone. It plants a seed of doubt in you that's hard to pull out. So, as I stood there in my wedding dress, I saw that same little girl in Amelia's eyes. The girl who broke my doll and felt no shame. The girl who knew she could get away with anything. She looked from Eleanor's knife to my husband, Mark, and then back to me. That cold smile never left her face. She was not afraid of the knife. She was afraid of something else, something she knew I could do. The lie about me being pregnant with another man's child was just a distraction. The real secret, the one she was about to use to save herself, was far, far worse. It wasn't about a broken doll. It was about a broken life. "Go on, Jessica," Amelia whispered. Her voice a poison dart meant only for me. "Tell them why you really hate me. Tell them about David." That name. It hung in the air like a ghost, cold and heavy. A name I hadn't said out loud in 10 years. A name that held the real reason for the darkness in my sister's eyes. My body went numb. I couldn't breathe. All the sounds of the wedding, the gasps, the whispers, faded away. All I could see was a dusty road, a setting sun, and the flashing blue and red lights. My legs felt like they were going to give out. My beautiful white dress suddenly felt like a cage. Mark saw the change in me. He saw the terror in my eyes. He finally moved, stepping between his mother and my sister. "Amelia, get out," he said, his voice firm and strong. "Get out of my house. Now." For the first time someone was choosing me. Someone was standing up for me. My mother rushed forward, her hands fluttering like scared birds. "Please stop," she begged, looking at the guests, not at me. "We can sort this out later. Let's not make a scene." Her words cut me deeper than Amelia's lie. She was more worried about what the neighbors would think than about my broken heart. This was always how it was. Amelia would start the fire, and I would get blamed for the smoke. My parents would rush to put out the fire, not to save me, but to save their perfect family picture. They were more afraid of shame than they were of the truth. Seeing my mother's weakness gave Amelia fresh power. "I'm the victim here," she cried, big tears welling up in her eyes. It was a perfect performance. The guests started to murmur, confused. Some looked at me with pity, others with suspicion. Was I the villain in this story? But Eleanor, my quiet, gentle mother-in-law, did not buy the act. She hadn't moved an inch. She held the silver knife steady, her gaze locked on Amelia. The guests, my parents, even Mark, they were all just background noise to her. She saw the real monster. Have you ever had someone see the real you? Not the person you pretend to be, but the scared child hiding inside. Eleanor saw my pain. She saw the years of hurt that Amelia had piled on top of me. And she was not going to let it continue. Not on her son's wedding day. "Oh, I know all about David," Eleanor said, her voice cutting through the drama. Every head in the tent snapped toward her. How could she possibly know that name? No one knew that name except me, Amelia, and our parents. We had buried that secret a decade ago. Amelia's fake tears stopped instantly. The color drained from her face. For the first time in her life, my perfect, untouchable sister looked terrified. Because Eleanor wasn't just holding a knife. She was holding a truth that could destroy Amelia completely. And she was about to use it. 10 years ago I wasn't getting married. I was getting ready for my high school prom. My dress was yellow like sunshine, and I was going with David. He wasn't the most popular boy, but he was kind. He had kind eyes and a smile that made me feel like I was the only girl in the world. He was my first love. Amelia hated him. She said he was a nobody. She told me I could do better, that I was embarrassing the family. But she didn't just say it to me. She said it to David too. She would whisper things to him in the school hallways, things that made his kind eyes fill with sadness. The night of the prom, David was driving us in his old pickup truck. He was so nervous and excited. He kept telling me how beautiful I looked. But then my sister called my phone. She was crying, saying she was stranded on an old dusty road miles away and needed help. She begged me to come get her. 'Twas a lie. There was nothing wrong with her car. She just couldn't stand seeing me happy. She wanted my night, my joy, my moment in the sun. She had to ruin it. David, being the good person he was, turned the truck around. He said, "We can't leave your sister stranded." We found her on that dark road, standing by her car, perfectly fine. She laughed when she saw us. Laugh. "I just wanted to see if you'd really come," she said, her voice dripping with malice. David got angry. He and Amelia started to argue, their voices rising in the quiet night. I begged them to stop. The argument got worse. Amelia said horrible things to David, calling him worthless. She told him I would never truly love him. She pushed every button she could find. David was so upset, so blinded by anger and hurt, that he got back in his truck to leave. He drove away too fast. We heard the screech of tires. Then a crash. A horrible, final sound that echoed in the darkness. David had swerved to miss a deer and hit a tree. Just like that, his kind eyes closed forever. The flashing blue and red lights stained my memory. My yellow dress was ruined. Amelia told everyone it was a tragic accident. Our parents helped her craft the story. They said David was driving recklessly. They said I was lucky to be alive. They never mentioned Amelia's phone call or the argument she started. They buried the truth to protect their perfect daughter. How do you mourn someone when you're not allowed to speak the truth of why they're gone? You carry it. You carry it like a heavy stone in your heart for years. And you learn to hate the person who put it there. You learn to hate your own sister. Back at my wedding, Eleanor lowered the knife, but her eyes were still sharp. "You see," she said to the silent guests, "some people break dolls." She glanced at me with a soft, knowing look. "Others break lives. And then they blame the wreckage on everyone but themselves." Amelia's face turned white as a sheet. Eleanor knew everything. But how? My parents stared at Eleanor, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear. "You don't know what you're talking about," my father stammered, his voice weak. He was trying to protect the family secret, the one that had festered in the dark for a decade. But Eleanor's truth was a light, and it was about to burn their lies away. "Oh, but I do," Eleanor said, her voice calm and steady. "My late husband, Mark's father. His name was Robert." She paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "He wasn't just a mechanic. On the weekends, he was a volunteer firefighter for our small town. He loved helping people." A cold dread washed over me. I remembered the men at the crash site, the flashing lights, the kind faces filled with pity. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the past was reaching out and grabbing me by the throat, pulling me back to that dusty road. Eleanor's eyes found mine, and for a second, I saw a deep sadness in them. "Robert was one of the first people at David's accident," she said softly. "He was the one who held your hand, Jessica, while you sat on the side of the road, covered in dust, staring at the wreckage." The memory hit me like a wave. A big, gentle man with calloused hands. He had wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and told me everything was going to be okay, even though we both knew it was a lie. I never knew his name. I never knew he was Mark's father. "My husband was a quiet man," Eleanor continued, turning her attention back to Amelia and my parents. "But he saw things. He saw a beautiful girl in a ruined yellow dress, completely broken. And he saw her older sister, without a scratch on her, already practicing her lies for the police. Amelia opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her perfect mask was cracking. My mother let out a small sob, burying her face in her hands. She knew it was over. The perfect picture she had spent years protecting was finally shattering for everyone to see. Eleanor took a step closer to my sister. Robert kept a journal. He wrote about every call he went on. He wrote about that night. He wrote about how your stories didn't add up. He was haunted by it. He called you the girl with the poisoned smile. How can a secret stay buried for so long, only to be dug up on the one day you're supposed to be happiest? It felt cruel. It felt like the universe was playing a sick joke on me. But this wasn't the universe. This was Eleanor. And she wasn't done yet. That journal is why I was worried about you, Amelia, Eleanor said, her voice like ice. It's why I started asking questions. But the journal isn't the only thing I have. She looked past Amelia, toward the back of the wedding tent. I also found the other person who was on that road with you that night. Every eye in the tent turned toward the entrance. A woman I hadn't seen in 10 years stepped out of the shadows. Her name was Sarah. She had been Amelia's best friend in high school, her loyal follower. I always felt like she was afraid of my sister, not friends with her. Sarah walked slowly toward us, her eyes fixed on Amelia. She looked older, tired. The years had not been as kind to her as they had been to my sister. She stopped a few feet away, taking a deep breath. The whole tent was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I was there that night, Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. Amelia called me right before she called you, Jessica. She told me to park down the road and watch. She said it was going to be funny. A prank to ruin your prom night. My father took a step toward Sarah. You're lying, he said, but his voice had no power. He sounded like a little boy trying to scare away a monster under his bed. No one was listening to him anymore. The truth had its own voice now, and it was loud. She thought it was a game, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger as she looked at Amelia with disgust. But when David showed up and he was so angry, it stopped being a game. I saw the whole thing from my car. I saw the fight. I saw the hate in your eyes, Amelia. I could see the scene in my head. Amelia, the puppet master, pulling all the strings. Sarah, the silent audience, too scared to stop the show. And me and David, the clueless puppets, dancing toward our doom. The pain of it was so fresh, it felt like it happened yesterday. Mark put his arm around me, holding me steady. He was my anchor in this storm of memories. He didn't look angry or shocked. He just looked sad. Sad for me, sad for the boy I had lost, sad for the life that had been stolen. After the crash, Sarah said, tears now streaming down her face. After the ambulance took David away, I drove up to Amelia. She wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. Sarah paused, her whole body shaking with the memory. She was just staring at the wreck. My mother cried out, "No, stop this." But it was too late to stop anything. The truth was like a runaway train, and it was about to crash right into the middle of my perfect family. We were all about to feel the impact. What would you do if a ghost from your past showed up to tell a truth you thought was buried forever? Would you feel relief, or would you feel terror? For me it was both. I was terrified of what was coming next. Sarah looked right at me, her eyes full of a decade of guilt. Amelia got in my car. I asked her if she was okay. She just looked at her phone, and then she said something I will never forget. Sarah took a shaky breath. She said, "Well, at least her ugly yellow dress is ruined." The words hung in the air, sharp and ugly. Well, at least her ugly yellow dress is ruined. The guests gasped. It wasn't a lie about a baby or a story about a car crash. It was a small, cruel sentence that showed the true darkness in my sister's heart. It was the final, undeniable proof. For me, something inside broke, but in a good way. The tiny part of me that still hoped, that still loved the sister she was supposed to be, finally died. A strange calm washed over me. The tears stopped. The shaking stopped. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor. Amelia, cornered and exposed, did the only thing she knew how to do: attack. "She's lying!" Amelia shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Sarah. "She was always jealous of me. She's making it all up because she wants to ruin my life, just like Jessica does." But no one was buying her act anymore. Her tears looked fake, her voice sounded hollow. My mother, who had protected Amelia her whole life, finally looked at her eldest daughter and saw the monster. She took a step back, her hand covering her mouth in horror. She was finally seeing the truth. My father tried to take control. "That's enough. This is a private family matter," he boomed, trying to use his big dad voice. But his voice was shaking. His power was gone. Eleanor looked at him, not with anger, but with pity. "You are right, this is a family matter," Eleanor said, her voice cutting through his. "It's a matter of a family that broke one daughter to protect the other. You didn't just cover up a lie. You watered and fed it for 10 years, letting it grow into this poison." Mark squeezed my hand, then stepped forward to stand beside his mother. He looked at my parents. "Jessica is my family now," he said, his voice ringing with loyalty and love. "And our family doesn't hide from the truth. We don't bury our pain to look good for the neighbors." For the first time in my life I felt truly protected. Felt seen. Felt loved. The wedding was ruined, my dress was probably stained with tears, but in that moment, standing next to Mark and Eleanor, I had never felt stronger. Eleanor then turned her calm, steady gaze back to my sister. "Let's go back to the lie you told 10 minutes ago, Amelia. The one about my son raising another man's child. Why did you choose that specific lie?" "It was very creative." Amelia paled. She looked like a trapped animal. She had used that lie as a weapon to hurt me, but now Eleanor was turning that weapon back on her. There was a reason she chose those words. A secret she was trying to protect by creating a distraction. "Were you just trying to cause Jessica pain?" Eleanor asked softly. "Or were you trying to create a big enough mess so that no one would look too closely at your own life? At your perfect marriage?" "Because I have." Eleanor paused, letting the threat hang in the air. "And I know things you don't think I know." Amelia tried to laugh. It was a horrible broken sound like glass grinding against stone. "My marriage," she scoffed, trying to regain her power. "My husband Tom adores me. Our life is perfect. You're just a sad old woman making up stories." But her eyes darted around the room, looking for Tom, her perfect husband. Eleanor didn't even look at Amelia. Her gaze scanned the crowd of stunned guests. "Tom!" she called out, her voice gentle but firm. "Tom, are you here? Please, don't be afraid to stand up." A nervous ripple went through the guests as they looked around. From the very back of the tent, a man slowly raised his hand. It was Tom. He looked thin and pale, like he hadn't slept in weeks. He was a kind man who worked in accounting. He had always looked at Amelia like she was the sun. Now he couldn't even look at her at all. "Tom, I am so sorry," Eleanor said, speaking directly to him. "I'm sorry you were pulled into this family's web of secrets." My parents flinched as if they'd been slapped. Eleanor was drawing a line in the sand. There was my new family, built on truth, and my old one, built on lies. "I know things have been hard," Eleanor continued, her voice filled with a sympathy no one had ever shown Tom. "I know that the fancy car Amelia drives is 3 months behind on payments. I know that your savings account, the money for your retirement, is gone." Amelia lunged forward. "You liar! You're a monster!" she screamed. But before she could get close to Eleanor, Tom's voice cut through the air. It was quiet, but everyone heard it. "She's not lying, Amelia. Stop." Every ounce of fight drained out of my sister. Her last supporter was gone. The guests were whispering loudly now. The shame was a thick blanket, suffocating us. My father looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. He had bragged for years about his successful daughter Amelia and her perfect life. It was all a house of cards. Why would someone go to such lengths to pretend? To live a life that wasn't real? It made me wonder what else was a lie. Was anything about my sister ever true? Felt like my whole childhood was a story someone else wrote. Then, Eleanor delivered the final blow. She looked at Amelia with something that looked like pity. That's why you came here today to lie about Jessica, isn't it? Because Tom finally had enough. Because he served you with divorce papers last Tuesday. The secret was out. Her perfect marriage was over. Suddenly, her lie about me having another man's baby made a terrible kind of sense. Her own family was breaking. Her own future was an empty house. She couldn't stand to see me building mine. So she took a grenade and threw it right into the middle of my happiness. But the explosion had caught her too. The truth, once it was out, was a terrible thing. It sucked all the air out of the tent. My sister, Amelia, the girl who was always the sun, just collapsed. Not fainting, but a slow, ugly crumpling to the ground, hiding her face in her hands. Her sobs were the only sound in a room full of ghosts. I looked at my parents. My father, a man who always stood so tall and proud, looked small. His face was gray, the color of ash. My mother was staring at her hands, the ones that should have held me when I cried for my broken doll, the ones that should have held me after David died. Finally, my mother looked up at me. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Jessica," she whispered, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't want to see." It was the apology I had waited my whole life to hear. But it felt like a tiny bandage on a giant wound. "Sorry for what, Mom?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Sorry for not believing me. Or sorry that all our neighbors had to find out. Your sorry is 10 years too late. Doesn't give me back my friend. It doesn't give me back the childhood you let her ruin." My father finally spoke. "She's your sister," he said, his voice hollow. "We're your family. Families make mistakes. They forgive." He was begging me to help him glue the pieces of our broken family picture back together. But I didn't want the picture anymore. I wanted to be free of the frame. "You're right. You are my family," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "And you know how I've been helping you plan your retirement. Going over your finances. Making sure your pension was safe so you could finally relax." My parents both nodded, confused. They thought I was their responsible, quiet daughter. "Well, you taught me a very important lesson," I continued, feeling a cold fire spread through me. "You taught me to protect my own happiness because no one else will. So, you can find a new financial planner. You can find someone else to manage your future. My love was not enough for you, so my help won't be either." My mother started to cry harder. The idea of losing my help, my support, was a punishment she could finally understand. It wasn't about the past. It was about her comfortable future. Sometimes the only language people understand is the one that affects them directly. I turned to my sister on the floor. "I forgive you, Amelia," I said, and I meant it. "I forgive you because I'm not carrying your hate anymore. From this day forward, you are just a woman I used to know." I was finally, truly letting her go. But as I turned back to Mark, ready to leave this disaster behind, Eleanor held up her hand. "One more thing," she said calmly, pulling out her phone. "This isn't just about family drama. It's also about a crime." She looked at Amelia. "Isn't that right? A crime involving your father's pension." My father laughed, a dry, cracking sound. "My pension? That's ridiculous. Jessica handles my pension. It's perfectly safe." He looked at me for support, for his good, quiet daughter to fix this. But I just stood there, silent, because I knew Eleanor was not a woman who made things up. Eleanor showed my father her phone. On the screen were bank statements. Transfer after transfer of money, small amounts at first, then bigger ones, moving from my parents' retirement account to Amelia's. "Tom gave me these," Eleanor said softly. "He found them last month." He couldn't live with the lies anymore. My father stared at the phone. The color drained from his face. All the years of hard work, of saving for a peaceful future, gone. stolen by the daughter he had worshipped, the one he had protected above all else. He looked at Amelia, his eyes begging her to say it wasn't true. I was going to pay it back. Amelia wailed from the floor. I just needed some help. My life was falling apart, and none of you cared. She blamed him, she blamed my mother, she blamed me. She was a black hole, sucking the life out of everyone around her and never taking the blame. My mother didn't say a word. She walked over to a chair and sat down heavily, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. She looked old. In one afternoon, all the lies she had told herself to keep her perfect family picture intact had been burned away, and all that was left was the ugly, empty truth. I looked at them. My sister, a thief crying on the floor. My father, a broken man who had lost his future. My mother, a hollow shell. They were my family, but they felt like strangers in a sad movie. The love I once felt was gone, replaced by a quiet, peaceful emptiness. Mark gently took my hand. Let's go home, Jessica. His voice was my life raft. Eleanor walked back to the cake table and placed the silver knife down softly. It had never been a weapon of violence. It had been a tool to make everyone stand still and listen to the truth. We walked out of that tent, leaving the wreckage behind us. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors of orange and pink. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air. My wedding was a disaster, but for the first time in my life I felt completely and totally free. My perfect day was ruined, but my life was just beginning. I had a husband who fought for me and a mother-in-law who saw my pain when no one else did. I was building a new family, one that wasn't built on secrets or lies, but on truth and real, unconditional love. If you have ever felt trapped by your past, please know that you are not alone. My story is proof that you can walk away from the people who hurt you and build a beautiful new life. Please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And subscribe because we all deserve stories that give us hope. Thank you for being a part of mine.